Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Christian Recorder Dialogues. Today, I am here with Mr. Robert Nicolas, the Executive Director of the AME Church Service and Development Agency. Probably some of you right now are wondering, what is AME SADA? What is AME SADA and what does it do? You may be surprised to know that of the Black denominations of the United States, the AME Church is the only one with its own freestanding non-governmental organization that specializes in service delivery to countries outside the United States. We are also the only one accredited to work with the United States Agency for International Development, which has been a huge partner of us for the last 30 to 40 years. The AME SADA is chaired by Bishop Adam Jefferson Richardson, who is the senior bishop of the AME Church. He unfortunately is unable to be with us today because he had to take a drive, and we would rather him drive safely than be on this call. But he sends his greetings, his blessings, and is thankful for us to take this day to spotlight AME SADA. Mr. Nicolas, welcome to the Christian Recorder Dialogues, and thank you for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you very much, John. It's a real pleasure and an honor for me to be here, and I'm looking forward to these discussions that we're going to enter into.
Okay, great. So first, I want to kick off with the people who are on this call, who are on this talk with us today. How did you end up getting to work at AME SADA? How was that journey? Because you're a lawyer by training, so how did you end up heading this organization for the AME Church?
Well, I was, as you say, I am a lawyer by training, but really, most of my career I've been working in development with private consulting firms, and with the only stint with a government agency was with the Peace Corps a number of years ago, and I was Peace Corps director in Togo. And after that, I joined a law firm here in Washington, where we're doing originally going to do some work internationally, but it was right when all of this democratization movement started in West Africa, which was where I had most of my experience. And so it was, for several years, it was very difficult to get projects going as these democratization activities and really a lot of unrest were going on. So we had to do something else in the law firm, which was a lot of employment discrimination work for a while. And then eventually I was ready to leave the law firm and go back internationally. I started looking around and I saw an ad really for the position of executive director, and I answered it. It was in one of the international newsletters, and I answered it, and I was interviewed and eventually hired. And really, just it was meant to be, as far as I can tell.
Wow. So, a couple of things, we've talked about this before, but briefly, before I took this stint at the Christian Recorder, I went to my grad school training is at the School of Public International Affairs at Princeton in development studies. And I remember the first time that I met you, I was in DC in grad school at an NGO fair, and I happened to go by the headquarters in DC and just sit and chat with you. So I've always been excited about the work, and I understand how important it is for us to have a presence in the development field. Can we talk to a little bit, as the people are listening here, what exactly is AME SADA? I gave a little bit about a little teaser, but tell the people here, why should we care about AME SADA, especially being the African Methodist Episcopal Church? Because we see you come at meetings, we hear it said, but to the people who might, not get it, tell us a little bit more about it.
Okay, well, we owe a lot to a group of people who had a vision about 40 years ago. And as you said, the AME Church is the only denomination with a nonprofit international development arm. And these 5 people had a vision, and to be able to set up a nonprofit that would be legally independent of the church, to be able to make alliances with other organizations to do international development. And the true mission of the AME Church to continue to work with people everywhere. And we don't just work in countries where the AME Church is active. We work wherever there's a need and we can find resources and funding to do the work. And the work has always been focused on, throughout SADA's entire history, on the neediest of the needy. And so that people who need us the most, who are get the least amount of attention from donors and from other organizations, and those are the places where we work.
So just to put in perspective for those people who are listening to this, people sometimes talk about giving money to save the children, talk about money giving to all these big NGOs that go around the world. But we formed and created our own NGO that still does that work. So when you're talking about giving money, I mean, we are happy to support people who do this type of work, but the AME Church has its own thriving humanitarian organization that is just like Catholic World Relief, just like Lutheran Charities. We formed our own entity and it still exists. So that's something that I think people sometimes lose sight of. We sometimes hear these big names, but perhaps to our detriment, we haven't talked enough about AME SADA.
And that's true. I mean, there are plenty of organizations in the US and Europe and in many countries that do this kind of work. But as you say, the AME Church has its own through AME SADA. And the work that we do is grassroots development, community development, whether it's in health, whether it's in education, whether it's in alternative energy, whether it's in agriculture. Those are the sectors where we work. And I'll be showing some examples as we talk about that work and where we're doing it. And these are the kinds of things where if we get some money from the connection right now directly, about a little bit less than $500,000, especially since the last 25% reduction that was done last year. And then we find another, depending on the year, $1.5 million to $2 million through proposals, through other donations to do the work that we do.
So the next time people are talking about giving money to a big name that you've seen in the news, look at that name that's on your connectional budget. That is something that is us, that we've done ourselves, that's run by people who look like us. You mentioned the projects, and of course, whenever you're ready, we'll be happy to show the videos. In fact, because I know we have videos today showing the work that we do in Ghana and we do in Haiti. So whenever you're ready, we can show those as we talk. So
perhaps we can do the introductory one, which is I think about 4 or 5 minutes, that shows everything that we do, if you like, and then we can talk specifically or at greater length.
That video is still being processed, so we may have to do that at the end of the talk. So let's let's go to the field representative in Haiti's video to talk about AME SADA.
All right.
So let's show the Haiti video, the first one.
AME SADA travaille depuis plusieurs années dans la région de l'Arcaïer, une commune du département de l'Ouest de la République d'Haïti. Les interventions se font dans 2 zones à écologie différente. Une zone de piémont sec, où se pratique l'élevage des cabris en divagation, c'est-à-dire en liberté, et une zone de montagne humide, haute altitude, où les planteurs pratiquent une agriculture de subsistance. Cette zone est fortement menacée par l'érosion. Les terres deviennent infertiles et les paysans ont des difficultés à subvenir aux besoins de leur famille. Face à cette situation, AME SADA, avec l'appui financier de Nicolas Foundation, a initié depuis mai 2018 des actions en vue de fournir des soins de santé aux familles et aussi une assistance technique aux producteurs en vue de pratiquer une agriculture durable tout en augmentant leur production. Nous vous invitons à visualiser le PowerPoint suivant présentant les diverses réalisations du projet durant cette période.
So, Mr. Nicolas, I know that you are fluent in French along with other languages. So tell us what we just watched.
Yes. This gentleman is an agronomist who's been working with AME SADA for quite some time. His name is Gisler Desir, and he heads the agricultural component. And he lays out the problem that we face in Haiti, where you have regions that are mountainous and regions that are more or less in the plains, that are flat, that are very dry and arid. The mountainous regions, in both areas, people, the vast majority of Haitians live off of agriculture, and it's subsistence agriculture, meaning barely enough to eat is really what they're able to do. And so looking at this situation, we were able to get a grant from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation to be able to address those situations in the dry, arid areas where people were working with raising a few goats. We simply took the situation of having goats as a resource and made it work for those farmers who work with us. And it's probably close to 1,000 goat herders that we work with, where we were able to take whatever goat herds they had, improve the quality and quantity to the point where, by bringing from another part of the country where there are people who are improving on the genetic makeup of the goats by simply crossbreeding, we brought in a number of these new types of goats, and which were developed in the area, in another area of Haiti, excuse me, and so that they could crossbreed with the local goats, and thereby we were able to, where they had goats that were the new goats were twice as large, meaning that they get more money and more meat, and were able to have 2 kids twice a year.
Wow.
So where before they would have at best 1 or 2 new goats a year, now they were getting 4. And they were twice as large as before, and sometimes even larger. And in order to do that, not only did we bring in the new types of goats, but we had to bring in and show the goat herders how to support that kind of a new goat, mainly feed them better. And we didn't import any food. We simply showed them how to raise new types of grasses in the area so that the food was local, right where the goats were being raised and herded, and then teach them that you had to bring water to the goats, not just let them go and do whatever they want, wherever they want. So in some instances, we learned to pen the goats so that they basically grew in a small area and grew fatter and brought more money to the farmer. And the goat for the Haitian farmer is like a savings account, so that he or she has enough goats, he can go sell them when there's a funeral, or where a child is sick, somebody needs surgery, or where they have some celebration, a marriage or baptism, whatever it is, or to just improve the livelihood, or to pay school fees for his or her children. And the other thing that we did also is because we were facing an area of severe and extreme poverty, we were able to take women who are bringing their children to the clinics who are malnourished, and take these women, organize them in groups so that they could start raising goats themselves and participate in the agricultural program that we have, so that we can see as a result if these children, malnourished children, are going to stop coming for the nutritional recuperation program that we have, which is a special program where children are kept for 14 days on a special diet, where they come to the clinic and eat, and are given what we call dry rations to take home to improve their nutritional status. Because small children who are deprived of proper nutrition, it'll take 3 generations to eliminate the impact of malnutrition of a young child when that young child is malnourished in the early stage of life. So it's really crucial and critical to try to eliminate this malnutrition. And by and 99% of the time, women are the ones who are responsible for the nutrition of their children. So if we get them in an income generating activity through goats and through better activities such as pigeon peas and other cash crops, then that whole family will eat better. and we can begin to talk about eliminating the malnutrition problem.
So for the people that are listening, again, I mean, most of SADA's work is in Haiti, and we'll get to that in a second. But just the fact to hear that a group paid for by the AME Church, sponsored by the AME Church, is actively involved in these health help initiatives outside the United States is truly amazing to me. Like, we're not a large denomination in terms of the money. Like, they have Catholic World Relief and Lutherans have millions and millions of dollars. And with what we give, we are able to do so much to help these people through the good work of AME SADA.
Through the clinics we have in Haiti alone, we see about 150,000 patients a year.
Mm.
And this
the
is
main
funding
go on.
From the connection, plus the funding that we bring from outside of the connection.
And the main clinic, I remember, I haven't been to see, I was supposed to go see the clinic. That's another story with Bishop Sarah Davis, but the main clinic is the Richard Allen Clinic, and it's right in Port-au-Prince, in downtown Port-au-Prince.
That's one of our clinics. That's the clinic in Port-au-Prince. We have 7 others.
Wow.
And the one in Port-au-Prince is the population it serves is mostly an urban population, which is also in great need. And there we have the whole panoply of child and maternal health. That means women of reproductive age, where we make sure they're aware of vaccination and can get vaccination and have their prenatal visits. And when it's time to give birth, that they have a safe environment to give birth and have a proper assistance to give birth, which are critical in making sure both mother and child survive.
I'm told we have the large video that we could save at the end. We're ready to do that now.
Okay.
We have it at the end. But, we've talked about some of SADA's work, but SADA is a faith-based agency. So, Mr. Nicolas, I know you've been to all these meetings. You've seen all these things that we've talked. Tell us about the role that faith has played in your life.
Well, if it wasn't for faith, I don't think I could do this work, because to provide these kinds of services in the areas and for the populations we provide them, it's not easy work. And you have to have something beyond just wanting to do it. You have to have a desire to serve your fellow human being and try to provide some improvement in the life of that population that we target. And it's not just a question, although it's hard enough to design the projects, to find the funding and find the personnel to do it, because again, to provide medical services to 150,000 people, you don't just kind of slap it together. So it has to be not only having the clinics, having the medical personnel for the clinics, having all the logistical support that you need to do it. And it's a daily grind, and you have to have something that motivates you to want to continue to do it, because and certainly it's not the money, because the salaries that we pay and the funding that we receive, we're not paying massive salaries, as important as it is to have money to do that. But you have to have something else within you that makes you want to do that work. And it can only be faith. That's the only thing. I don't know of anything else that would motivate me to do it. So that you feel a desire, you feel a duty to do this for your fellow human being.
Wow. And you've taken a great leap of faith working with us in the AME Church. And we appreciate you for being here with us, because you were raised Catholic, correct? And
yes.
You're working with us.
Yes. I mean, it's, one of the things that was important to me is the history of the AME Church, which had a history of that kind of service, of that kind of leadership, and also self-sufficiency. Those are all traditions of the AME Church. And as we see in the news, the massacres in Tulsa and all the other mess that we've had to face at the hands of the police, it's organizations like the AME Church that have allowed us to survive these hundreds of years, from slavery to today. And whether it's the traditions that from whence I came, being born in Haiti and being raised in Haiti. So those things resonate with me very well, really. That's just part of my being.
And it's interesting to note, that the first mission field of the AME Church was Haiti, and the first AME Church established outside the United States was St. Paul, Port-au-Prince. So, Haiti is very deeply rooted in our ministry and in our history. Mr. Nicolas,
what if a ship to take to Haiti in the early 1800s?
And that's how why we have churches now in Haiti and the Dominican Republic, because of Boyer and how everyone came over. Yeah.
And in addition to St. Paul's, the number of churches has been growing quite a bit, especially in the last few years in Haiti.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so SADA, really, honestly, where we're serving is in some ways a tribute to where we started, to our first eyes outside of the United States.
Right.
So you've been director of SADA. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just saying the work of the churches in Haiti is separate from what we do, but I collaborate very closely with the bishops responsible for that area over the years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I've seen that happen, I've seen the work you've done with Bishops Byfield, Bishop Davis, Bishop White, and Bishop Guidry. Those are the four that I got to work with from the 16th, and Bishop DeVoe, that's 5. And I've seen you've helped the bishops with the security, you've helped the bishops get in and out of certain places. So you've been a part of our evangelism in that work, as well as our development work in Haiti.
Yeah, we work very closely together, and whenever there's a need to help one another, we do that. And the bishops have helped.
So you've been
for our work.
So it's a great partnership, and it's great that they've taken ownership of SADA. Yeah,
very much so.
So, Mr. Nicolas, if we can talk about your administration of SADA, you've been director of SADA right now for going on, what is now, 15, 20 years? How long have you been at SADA?
Closer to 16, 17 years.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest accomplishments in this decade and plus of you being at SADA? What are some of your biggest accomplishments? What would you say has been that?
It's, I think, in trying to put in place administrative and logistical structures to do the work, and establishing relationships with not only with donors but with other organizations with whom we've done partnerships, and also with some of the governments in the countries where we've worked, and also increasing the funding.
Speaking of governments and new initiatives, the Ghana initiative was something that began under your administration, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So let's show the video of the Ghana country director, and let's talk a little bit more about how SADA went from Haiti to Ghana. So let's show the Ghana video.
All right.
The African Methodist Episcopal Church Service and Development Agency, AME SADA, is the humanitarian and relief wing of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. AME SADA has been operating in Ghana and West Africa for the past 3 years. In Ghana and West Africa, AME SADA operates in 4 main thematic areas. 1, agri and food security, alternative energy, water, sanitation and health, then education, especially special needs education. In agri and food security, we are looking at working with women groups and the vulnerable, basically the youth, to enhance their livelihoods, improve their food security, improve income to sustainable levels. We do this through various approaches, looking at community savings mobilization, what we call village savings and loan scheme, where they will do their own savings mobilization and reinvest same into productive ventures. In health, water and sanitation. We are basically looking at the health needs of the communities of the vulnerable, and also ensuring that provision of safe drinking water for communities. On alternative energy, we're working on providing off-grid solar for rural folk, and in areas or countries that is possible, we look at providing solar that could be hooked onto the national grid. In education, we are looking at special needs education, where we look at education institutions that provide support to the vulnerable, people who are physically challenged and who need assistance to be able to be trained technically so that they can be on their own. Our approach is to work with community-based organizations or local development agencies where we sign agreements, basically MOUs with them. We work together to respond to calls for proposals, and then we do implementation together. So far, we have agreements with a number of such NGOs in Ghana and then Liberia. In Liberia, for instance, we are currently implementing a women empowerment program in 3 counties, where AME SADA is concerned with economic empowerment of the women groups, whilst our partner in Liberia, Hope, is looking at providing voice and enhancing the rights of these vulnerable groups. So we look out to partnership with like-minded agencies and organizations so that we can provide the needed services and development to the underprivileged and the hard-to-reach section of our societies. Thank you.
I was hearing those chickens in the background, so we know he was definitely in the field. So tell us about, now he said that this started about 3 years ago. So how did we get into Ghana, and what is your vision for the AME SADA work in Ghana?
All right. The work in Ghana is intended as a regional office.
Mm-hmm.
And originally, we were going to open that office in Liberia, except that Ebola came into being and it just wasn't getting any easier. So we thought, okay, well, Ghana could be geographically and just as useful. So we decided to go ahead and open it in Ghana. And it's intended as a regional office. And Mr. Awusi Natoma, who was just talking, is with a master's in agricultural development. His experience and specialty is in agriculture, and we have been looking at a number of writing a number of proposals with Ghanaian partners. No big proposals have been funded yet. One has been funded in Ghana with an organization created by one of the AME pastors in Ghana, and it's Hope for Liberia. And it's an organization that we had a small grant from the UN Peace and Humanitarian Fund to work with women in Liberia in 2 parts, Bong and Boni counties in Liberia, to work for women's empowerment. And our portion of it will be to train women in microenterprise development. Of course, that grant was due to start right when the COVID pandemic started. So that has been delayed. The work has been greatly delayed. It was scheduled to start, or rather to end, this October, but it's going to have to be extended because the work has been slowed tremendously because of this problem with the pandemic, which has prevented us from really moving around very much. We've also done a lot of other proposals, which so far we're waiting for funding. We also have looked at, in addition to Liberia, we've looked at Burkina Faso, across the border from the northern border from Ghana, and we've also looked at Ivory Coast, where we've written a couple of proposals. So we're still trying to look for some funding for us to do the work. And as Mr. Natoma has said, we're looking at agricultural development, we're looking at education, and also one of the things he did not mention, we're looking at aquaponics, also that we're trying to do with some partners here in the U.S., in Virginia, one of the professors in one of the universities in Virginia. So we're looking at a number of things to try to expand the work that we're doing, because the idea is to not just stay in Haiti, and we had also done extensive work in South Africa, but that has the funding ended more than 3 years ago for that, and so we're looking for additional work to do in other parts of Africa.
This SADA, and you've talked about this, the fact that we deal with a lot of projects and we work from project to project to project. So I know that can be challenging, but what are some of the other challenges that you've had to deal with as the executive director of AME SADA?
Well, the political environments we work in. Sometimes, like for instance, Liberia was one issue where it wasn't just a question of politics; it was the question of this disease that came up, and so we had to retract. And in Ivory Coast, things slowed down in the last few months because of the elections that took place there. And in Haiti, we've had to deal with a lot of political unrest. And when it's like that, the first issue is safety of the staff. We don't want to expose our staff to situations where they could be harmed or lose their lives. So it from a logistics standpoint, from a security standpoint, we have to do a lot of planning, and sometimes we have to hold back on the work. And we have to work closely with the donors to say, okay, we're going to be late with this or that activity because I don't want to put my staff at risk. Mm-hmm. So those things, we just have to deal with them as they come. I mean, obviously we prepare for them. One of the things that has helped us in Haiti is that the staff lives in the clinics where they work during the week. Mm-hmm. So and those clinics are well outside of Port-au-Prince, where usually most of the mess takes place when there are political problems. So they're able to continue to work in the countryside, but that means they have to have food, they have to have all of the supplies, medical supplies that they need. So the logistics of that become very important to be able to take care of that so that the staff can do their work. And the staff is very dedicated, and they'll work under harsh circumstances. And one of the things that we've done, and many of the people who came to the dedication of the new clinic a couple of years ago in BRC saw how we were able to, for the first time, design our own clinic. So we were able to design quarters for the staff and all of that. And one of the other things that we've done is all but 2 of our clinics are electrified with solar power. So again, we don't have to depend on generators and bringing fuel up the mountain, driving for 3 hours or whatever it takes to bring the fuel up there, because they have solar panels, they have batteries, and that means they can have refrigerators, they can have freezers to stock up on everything that they need to live and continue to do the work. Just the basic creature comforts, such as hot and cold waters. And we collect rainwater, and we, in the BRC clinic, the Belize clinic, for instance, is almost the size of a small swimming pool underground to collect rainwater, to have enough rainwater for the entire dry season. So those are things that require resources and planning, and that's what we do for the staff to be able to continue. And as we develop activities in Africa, we're taking the same outlook in preparing for whatever situation the staff needs to face to do their work.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot here. This is a friendly audience, but we know that you are funded by the AME Church, and I know what your budget is for the AME Church. And so if we're being honest between here, and this is church folk talking, how much does SADA, based upon what we give SADA, how much does SADA realistically have to raise every year to ensure that it can maintain its projects?
I need a minimum of $1 million a year, over and above what the AME Church provides us. A minimum of $1 million just to maintain what we have.
So for those of you here who are listening on this interview, based upon the less than about, I think it's $350 right now, $350,000 to $400,000 that we give SADA, $1 million more is realistically needed. Now, you've been able to find that money largely through USAID and other partner grants. And based upon donations, because I know every year we have an AME SADA Sunday, up and above what the AME Church gives with the budget, how much on average do you get in donations from the AME Church? Again, this is family. Let's be honest.
We usually somewhere around 100,000.
So
and that includes bishops who will have some very special activity to raise for us, to raise money for us. That includes, and then individuals who continuously send us their donations.
So basically, you get 350,000 from the church, 400,000 give or take. 100,000 comes in donations from us, which means you have to do the work in the name of the AME Church outside the United States in these various areas. You have to look and try to figure out how to raise $1 million a year.
Yeah,
you don't need to say anything. I just want people to hear this as we say this. And it's been coming in the chat. Jackie Dupont Walker reminds us that SADA Sunday is normally done, and SADA Sunday was supposed to be last Sunday, but I know with the pandemic, everything that's been going on, that's why we have this dialogue originally scheduled for this Sunday, but for today. But SADA Sunday was last Sunday, but it's something that we instituted for to celebrate the founding of SADA in May to get congregations to develop. Has that been helping much over the last 3 or 4 years?
It varies from year to year as to how much is collected. This year, with the pandemic, we didn't do the big publicity effort that we've done in the past. And that's on me. It's just a lot of things going on. And even though we've gotten to the point where even we have, our Washington staff is basically 3 people full-time and 2 people part-time. And we've gotten into a routine of being able to work from home and all of that. And now, starting really just now, we're having people come into the office. People choose 1 day a week that they come into the office to try to begin to see how that will work out for us. And so far, I've let the staff members choose the day they want to come, and it's starting to work out very well. But we were still being pretty productive working from home. So
I just seen in the chat that Reverend Anita Marshall from the 4th District just said she's going to send in $1,000 today. So you can mail that check to 1134th 11th Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. And Mr. Nicolas will be happy to take your money and happy to spotlight you and what SADA is doing. Thank you, Reverend Marshall, for being a blessing to SADA.
Thank you.
And the Council of Bishops, I know one of the offerings for the council service was for AME SADA, and we were told that you received those monies from the council. We did,
and we'll be publicizing those lists also that we received from the council.
Yes,
and
so
we received funding from individual bishops, including Bishop Davis here in the 2nd District, who gave us a very generous donation a couple of months ago. So these continue to roll in as people decide to make their donations.
And we're happy for those who have given. Like out of what we get from the recorder, I was taught early on, donor numbers are important. And for you to be able to get more money, you need to say the AME Church members give us this. So it's not just about what you give. It's the fact that if AMEs give, you can then say, I get this money from the church. Can you help me? So, people sometimes get caught in the number, but it's also the number of who give, not just the number of what you give.
It's very important for 2 reasons. Number one, it allows us to have funds that are not earmarked for a specific project. Although sometimes people want to give specifically for child maternal health or agriculture or something, and it gets spent that way. But not having funds that are earmarked specifically for something gives us flexibility from an administrative standpoint, because there are always things that are coming up that need to be taken care of. And also, one of the things that it does is that the money that we get from the AME Church covers my administrative costs, so that when I'm going to apply for money with another foundation or with USAID, it helps me keep my administrative costs low, so that the money that is provided can go directly, a greater part of it can go directly for the actual activity that's being funded.
Used to work with and we have Gene Tungara says I'm going to send him my $1,000 too. So we thank you for again, that address is 1134 11th Street Northwest, Washington D.C. We're going to put that up at the end, and you can go to amesada.org. All the information is there. Thank you for supporting AME SADA. You know, you mentioned USAID.
One of our members is a member of the board of AME SADA.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I've seen. That's right.
Continuing support.
So you mentioned USAID, and just can you talk to us a little bit about what the relationship is with SADA and USAID? And first, tell the people here, many of whom may have not lived in this international development world, what is USAID? You know, it's funny, people in 14 through 20 have better idea of what USAID is than the people in the US that are actually paying for it. So let's hear about it.
Well, the United States Agency for International Development is the agency of the US government that does economic development throughout the world, in whatever countries the US decides to do these projects in. And we are continuously writing proposals in the areas of health, in the areas of agriculture to USAID, and some we win, some we don't. But right now, we receive about $500,000 as a subcontract in the health sector from USAID through Caris Foundation, which has a larger contract in Haiti. And we have a subcontract with them of about $500,000 a year. So a little bit less than that this year for the health project that we have. It's a child and maternal health, all that vaccination, all the work with children's health, all the works with mothers and ensuring that they have safe deliveries, that they're vaccinated, etc. HIV/AIDS, problems with really it focuses on women of reproductive age and children from birth to 5 years old and all their health issues. And that funds the bulk of the health activity that we do. And then the rest is just trying to find partners that we can go after projects with USAID, whether it's in agriculture, in health and education. Those are the ones we look after. And we also have received funding from UNICEF, which is the United Nations Children's Fund. We've received funding from some of the European organizations. We've received funding from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, which has been extremely important to all of the work that we did in agriculture, what I was describing earlier, that we've done in agriculture. And all of this requires proposals. We sit down. I mean, I spend a lot of my time. I get these various newsletters that talk about organizations that are open for funding. We've gone after some European money. We've gone after some private foundations. We've done after some of the UN. We haven't done anything with World Bank yet, but it's just a matter of time and finding the right proposal and the right partner so we can go after some of that funding.
So I was going to ask this, but you already answered it. SADA is, even though we're small, we're viewed as a well-respected member in the international development community, correct?
Well, we certainly hope so, and we try to have membership in various organizations, that umbrella organizations that where we meet with other U.S.-based nonprofits, etc. To again, whether we're looking for partners or these organizations try to do some that we belong to do the lobbying, or it's not called lobbying, it's the educating of people on the Hill, of also USAID, and also try to keep up with what's going on with the World Bank, with the UN agencies, etc., so that there can be an environment where we have half a chance of getting some funding.
So speaking of the health work in Haiti, I believe our last clip before the main video is of the clinic in Haiti, the medical director. So you want to share that with you right now so you can see some of the health work that AME SADA does in Haiti.
Yes, and I believe it's in French, and I will summarize after she speaks.
Docteur Mialan Parette, je travaille pour AME SADA depuis tantôt 12 ans. AME SADA, c'est l'œuvre sociale de l'église AME en Haïti. Nous existons depuis 40 ans. Nous avons commencé à travailler à la clinique de Port-au-Prince en faisant les vaccinations lors des baptêmes des enfants. Puis, le ministère nous a demandé de venir travailler au niveau du cabaret et d'Ancaille parce qu'il n'y avait aucun autre service de santé dans ces zones, ce que nous avons fait. Donc maintenant nous travaillons au niveau de la clinique de Port-au-Prince et de 5 autres cliniques au niveau de cabaret et Ancaille et aussi un point fixe. Ces cliniques au niveau d'Ancaille et de cabaret, ils sont très éloignés les uns des autres. Et l'hôpital le plus proche est souvent assez loin pour ces gens-là qui, pour la plupart, il n'y a pas de voie de communication réellement entre ces zones. Ils y vont soit à pied, soit à dos. Nous avons 7 points de prestation de service, un à Port-au-Prince, les 6 autres au niveau de cabaret d'Ancaille, plus un point fixe. Nous avons 102 agents de santé qui travaillent dans des secteurs bien définis. Ces secteurs, ce sont des zones où habitent environ 1000 à 1500 familles. Et ce sont ces 1000 à 1500 familles que l'agent de...
All right, that was the video that we had. So tell us what we just heard.
Yes. This is Dr. Parette. Again, one of the things that you'll notice is that in Ghana, we have a Ghanaian, and in Haiti, we have Haitians. So far, we've been able to recruit locally for whatever we've needed, whether it's been in Haiti, in South Africa, in Ghana. Dr. Parette, of course, is Haitian, and she's a pediatrician by training. And one of the things that she reminded me of is the way AME SADA got started in Haiti was that I believe it was the women's missionaries who had gotten some money to vaccinate children who were being baptized at St. Paul's. And the reason why that started was Bishop Talbot was the bishop responsible for that area, and his wife, of course, is a physician.
Dr. Talbot.
And Supervisor Talbot is a physician, and so they came for one of their usual meetings, etc. And there was a service at St. Paul's, and there was a baptism. And a few weeks later, or a few months later, they came back for, again, usual meeting, and Supervisor Talbot asked about the children that had been baptized during their previous visit, when there was a service at St. Paul's. And she was flabbergasted to hear how many of them were dead, had not survived. And so she just found that that's not an acceptable situation. And so that's when she got started with raising money from the missionaries to vaccinate children. And that's how AME SADA got started, in vaccination programs that were completely, again, funded by the AME Church, by the missionaries, donations, and that's how we got started with a small vaccination program. The government saw that we had a vaccination program right there in Port-au-Prince. I said, well, why don't you go to Ancaille, which is a couple hours outside of Port-au-Prince, and do the same thing? And so we were able to get some USAID money, and then this was almost 40 years ago, and that's how we got started in health in Haiti. And that's she was explaining that, and then the program, which grew from St. Paul's and now is done through 7 other clinics outside of Port-au-Prince, where we, as I said, we're over 150,000 patients a year, and it's not just vaccination, but it's the whole panoply of child and survival health, so that we take women of reproductive age, And because those are the most vulnerable periods, and children from birth to 5, and deal with their health issues. So it's vaccination, it's diarrhea, it's all kinds of whatever lung problems they may have, lung infections, upper respiratory infections they may have. And then we got into HIV/AIDS, and then we got into all kinds of other illnesses that that group, age and group has, and it has grown from there. And then once we got into the health issues, we found that yes, we have health issues, but the problem stems from poverty. And then that's got into the other aspects of it. First, for a long time, we had a microcredit program. And then we got more recently in the last 5 years into the agriculture, because we're dealing with a population that lives in rural areas, that lives off of agriculture. So my secret, no, not so secret plan is that we have to have a population that can come to the clinic and pay for services. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. Because the services, they had to pay for them, they couldn't do it. Because and the services are pretty low. The prices are pretty low. But the $1 fee that the mother would have to pay for a child who comes in with diarrhea, $1 for the consultation, the medicine, the lab work, whatever she needs, less than $1 US. That means the rest of the family will not eat for a few days.
Wow.
You take that money. So why would I take that money? So the idea is that woman who comes in, who lives in a rural area, she has to have income to be able to pay for the services. Because the first thing the donor asked me is, how long am I going to have to continue to pay for these clinics to operate? And I haven't the foggiest idea. Really, that's the true answer. I can give lots of other answers, but the true answer is I don't know. If the economy of that country, of that region does not change, how can I charge that woman $1 for the service? And $1 doesn't cover the cost of the service. So why would I take it when I'm literally taking food out of the mouth of the rest of the family? So this is why we raise money, to be able to not only to continue, but to expand these services, and not just in Haiti, but in other parts of the country also. In Africa, the situation is much better. The poverty situation is much better, but you still have very, very underserved populations, large underserved populations. Even in Ghana, which is a country where the economy is really in great shape, but the populations that we target in Ghana, they're just as needy as the ones in Haiti.
Our time is wrapping up. So, I mean, this has been so rich. And like I said, we wanted to bring you on today because we know this Sunday would have been AME SADA Sunday, the third Sunday in May. But more importantly, we wanted people to hear from you just what SADA does, and to hear that the end goal isn't to keep sending money for clinics to keep open. The end goal is to raise the level of these communities to be self-sufficient. I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing goal. So, Mr. Nicolas, we always will let you have the last word. So we're going to do a couple of announcements, and then we're going to come back to you, and we're going to wrap with showing the video that we have from AME SADA. So our announcements for today are as follows. Our next TCR dialogue will be on June 3rd with Reverend Dr. Elaine Flake at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And so we hope that you will join us for that special discussion with the first female pastor of Allen Cathedral AME Church in Jamaica, Queens. To our knowledge, the woman in the United States with the largest church is Reverend Dr. Elaine Flake, and she'll be interviewed by our own Reverend Morgan Dixon. And also on June 4th, we have invited you to come back for our special evening discussion on LGBTQ plus inclusion and the AME Church. We have a very special panel of persons from around the connection who will be joined with Mr. Alfonso David, who is the president of the Human Rights Campaign. You don't want to miss that important discussion on LGBTQ inclusion and the AME Church. On Sunday at 5 p.m., we will have our Bishop's Candidate Forum on Sunday at 5. That's the flyer for our LGBTQ dialogue that we want to invite you to be with us on Friday in the evening for that very special panel. On Sunday at 5 p.m., we will have our Bishops Candidate Forum. 21 of the 22 candidates have agreed to join us for an hour and a half dialogue and discussion. We invite you to be with us, to join us, and to listen and learn about these persons who wish to serve the church in the Episcopal office. We encourage you, as always, to continue supporting us through your subscriptions, $36 a year, and your donations. Some people have actually just donated to the recorder, helping us to keep this work going during the pandemic as we've had our budget cut. We thank you for that. We also encourage you to support the AME Church Publishing House. As you know, we've been advertising their Christianity in Context dialogue, that series of videos that is on their website at iamame.org. We encourage you to look at that. Those resources are there for you to use in your church. And also next week, the quarterly church school training will be going on, and we encourage you to be there for that. And lastly, as always, we like to acknowledge those persons who have thought it not robbery to share with the Christian Recorder. Our sponsors for today's dialogue are Jay Augustine for Judicial Council, and John Foster for Bishop. And we'd like to now request that our tech team show our final video before going back to Mr. Nicolas.
For almost 3 decades, AME church leaders, in partnership with the African Methodist Episcopal Church Service and Development Agency, have illustrated the church's commitment to advancing human dignity and alleviating unnecessary human suffering around the world.
AME SADA, the International Humanitarian Relief and Development Agency of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, has life-changing programs in Haiti and South Africa. AME SADA provides resources to improve the quality of life and meet the basic needs of the people of these countries through programs that focus on healthcare, education, and financial empowerment. Lives are changed and saved daily through the work of AME SADA.
Our work needs people like you to help in our programs of building lives and in programs that increase prosperity and empowerment among the world's poor. Help us. Help the people in need through your direct contributions. Help us to help with vital programs through a personal annual contribution to AME SADA. Help us help through business and corporate contributions. Help us help with AME SADA programs in your church, congregation, among your friends and charitable networks. We need pastors and people of conscience to pledge to AME SADA programs. As we reach out to you this year, we ask each of you for your outreach to us and to the world. Give to AME SADA. We will all benefit from your gift. Thank you.
So, folks, you heard the words from Mr. Nicolas's mouth. Give to AME SADA. We've been flashing the information throughout the dialogue. You can visit their website. And above all, thank you, Mr. Nicolas, for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your talents with the AME Church. And we will see you all next time.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to spend this time with you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the work that we do, and also to thank all of the people who donate and who make our work possible, and especially thank all of our staff, whether in Haiti, Ghana, and those who work with us in South Africa, for all of their hard work, because none of this could be possible without them. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Nicolas, again, you're a blessing to us, and you're an inspiration to me, seeing how much you do for the church with what you have. And we're looking forward to your report for the General Conference. I know you have a great video prepared, and when it's shown to the public, then we're going to bring it back and show it over here so people can really see and appreciate. And again, remember that SADA is a blessing to us all. Thank you, Mr. Nicolas. Thank you. And thank you for working with AME Church.
Thank you.